Hey everybody, it's Karl Krentzel here from the Red Pill Investor Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on YouTube here or on the podcast itself. Wherever you're hearing it, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. It has been a very long time since we've spoke together, and I've had quite a few things on my heart. I just wanted to go ahead and say, first of all, thank you for listening in and all your emails and direct messages and everything that you've shared with me over time. I really do appreciate it. And one of the things that I have been noticing as a common thread many times are realtors or real estate agents from across the United States contacting me saying that there's just not that much information out there as it relates to realtors who invest. You know, when you think about it, there's even less information for realtors who invest and on really how to do it ethically within the Realtor Code of Ethics. I mean, when you think about it, okay, if you're a realtor out there and you want to get into investing, no matter if it's a wholesale deal or a fix and flip or however you choose to invest, and you go to BiggerPockets or some of these other forums, you see a lot of information for people who are unlicensed. But as you and I well know, there's a lot of things that you see that there's just no way you can do and keep your license. And so it puts you in a strange place. Makes you wonder, should you keep your license? Should you be unlicensed? How should you go about this? And how should you do this in relation to the Code of Ethics? You don't want to get in trouble with anybody. You know, if you're like me and you still want to invest and you still want to be licensed, well then, you've seen the same things that I have. There's tons of investors in your marketplace, I'm sure, as well as mine. Many of them are real estate agents. And many times, you, like I, hear the horror stories that accompany these things. These people who get them under contract, often, to disastrous results. I wrote down, I'm hoping really that these 6 or 7 tips that I'm about to give you are going to be helpful for you as an investor and as a realtor to help you navigate through the Code of Ethics and to go ahead and help you make sure you do this properly so you can serve both your clients with the way they're supposed to be served, the customers that you serve, you'll treat them respectfully, and then you'll be able to treat the public at large in the correct way. I know that you're not alone, really. I want you to know that you're really not alone as a realtor, because I too have felt this way, and you're not alone. There's a lot of people who are like you who've reached out to me as well. I wrote down point number 1, the first tip, if there was a tip that I would give you, point number 1, use a standard real estate contract. Use a standard real estate contract. Now, I know I can already kind of feel the pushback from many of you already that, gosh, I don't want to get involved with my contract. My contract in my state's 9-10 pages long, and then there's all these addenda, etc. And believe you me, I know that wholesalers in your state are getting away with a 1 or 2 page contract, and I get it. It can be frustrating as a real estate practitioner, especially if you do this professionally full time, to see people come in and just with a 1 page or 2 page contract and go out and get things under contract. I get it. But the truth is the state contract is better for really 2 reasons. I wrote down point number 1, as a realtor, it's actually the standard of practice. If you've ever had problems with your board of realtors or with your department of real estate, it's going to be in that area right there. It's because you deviated from the standard of practice. If everybody else is using a standard real estate contract by the state, why aren't you? That's going to be question number 1. Second point I wrote down is that it actually makes it more saleable. Think this through. If you use a state contract, okay, with the words and the phraseology that you need to use, well, then it makes it a lot more saleable, because now buyers, can actually come from the realtor pool. Think about it. Buyers prior to this, they may not be realtors, because many times if they're trying to buy it, they have to get that contract through their brokerage. And if it's a 1 or 2 page contract, their broker is probably not going to go for that too well. They're probably going to want it on a state contract. And if you start with the end in mind and you begin with a state contract, many times I think what you'll find is that you'll have a more saleable contract. I wrote down, it's easier to close down as a bonus point. It's easier to close with a title company or an attorney. Sure, Title companies and attorneys, they can read a one-page contract, two-page contract and get through it. Of course they can. But the idea here is to smooth out your transaction to make it as simple and as flawless as possible. And if that's the case, then use what everybody else is using. Standard of practice is a state contract. I'd recommend point number one, you use that. Point number two, licensee disclosure is a must. Now, obviously, if you've been a realtor for more than 10 minutes, you know that if you have any interest in a property or you're looking to have any potential interest in a property, you need to disclose that, especially your license status, right away. So it really shouldn't come as any surprise that really point number two here would be that, without going chapter and verse into the code of ethics, we all know that you have to disclose this material fact. But believe it or not, I've never lost a deal because of it. Some agents, some investors who are agents might be thinking, gosh, if I let them know that I'm an agent, then they're not going to want to deal with me because they don't want to list their homes. Great. I say great, perfect. If they don't want to list their home, that's so much the better. That doesn't mean that they can't interact with you as a member of the public who just happens to be a real estate agent or a broker. I wrote down letting the seller know in advance of your status, if they don't already know. I mean, in my case, I make it very clear that I'm a real estate broker. If they don't already know that, by letting them know in advance, it's both fair play, right? And it's also helpful, okay? When you think about it, chances are this might actually be a listing possibility. Now, I know many of you, the thought of taking a listing is the furthest thing from your mind. You don't want to do it. But there is also the couple of you that do listen to this podcast or watch my YouTube video who invest, who also do take listings from time to time. And this is a convenient way to, if you let them know in advance that you're an agent, then this does give you the opportunity to consider this as an opportunity to maybe get this conversation turned a different direction. Point number three, holy cow, tip number three, no agency. No agency. You got to be very, very clear, okay? Look, you got to be crystal clear, okay? Either you're listing the property, okay, and taking a commission, okay, when representing them in their best interest, in which case you have no interest in the property, okay, and you're going to take a commission. That's the way you're going to get paid. Or, you're going to buy the property with the, intent to resell for a profit, in which case you're representing yourself, okay? You can't straddle the fence. You can't both take a commission in some way and a fee in another way. You can't ethically do both. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there thinking you can, but the code of ethics is very clear. You can't do it. And net listings and things like that are frowned upon by the Code of Realtors, and more than likely your broker is going to take a really dim view on that as well. It's just best not to do it. When you think about it, how could you represent them, take a commission, and take a fee for profit? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. If you and I both know that, so why would you want to, mess up the works? I mean, put more, problems with it. Why would you make mention of it? When you think about it, it really leads into tip number four. If there's no agency, okay, and tip number three, well then tip number four, well then there can really be no commissions. Right? If there's no agency, well, then there's no commissions, okay? You're expressing to them right off the bat, there's no agency implied or expressed. I'm working on my own behalf. That was the second tip, I guess it was, right? The first tip, second tip, right? To disclose the fact that you were an agent. So in this particular case, when you say, look, you're not representing anybody and you're not expecting any commission, there's no commissions to be paid, well, psychologically, okay, this puts you exactly why you're here in the first place. Now that there isn't any agency implied or expressed and there's no commissions, you've gone a really long way to protecting yourself, okay, from any kind of things that could go sideways when it comes to that, right? A misrepresentation, for example, or agency or something along those lines comes to mind. Tip number 5, provide the seller with market information. This is so critical. Okay, now I know that some of you are probably screaming at your YouTube right now thinking, what am I, stupid? I'm telling you, okay, the Realtor Code of Ethics is very clear on this, that even though there's no agency obligation, there is sometimes this implied thought that you're going to come out there and you're going to know more about the property than they will. That there's this thought that perhaps that you're going to rip them off, right? So I wrote down, the Code of Ethics requires that realtors be honest and truthful in their dealings with the public. But they're not your client. So now what do? Right? The fear is that if you show them what it's worth, okay, well then they're going to want more. And that's a legitimate fear. I get it. But there's no need to worry. When you think about it, those are homes that are on the multiple listing service, that are listed, that are paying commissions, that are doing repairs, that are spending on time on the market, that are subject to appraisals. And there's all sorts of other things that comprise the value and the sales price of those homes. That's not the same as the home that smells like cat urine and needs a bunch of repairs, right? I wrote down, bring a CMA, a one-line CMA, a statistical CMA, just something simple outlining what you feel are the most, appropriate comparables. Do not be afraid to tell them the truth up front. Hey, I think it's probably worth X, but you're willing to sell it to me for Y. So just have them initial, sign it, something like that to register the fact that you in fact showed them, hey, I thought it was worth this, you chose to sell it to me for that. Because believe it or not, okay, this actually does help pre-qualify that seller. If they're serious about selling their home at a discount to you for cash, well then they're not going to have any problem with this. Trust me, I have never had a problem with that. I've had more problems with people offering them more money than I've had with this, right? Tip number 6, tell them what's going to happen. Tell them what's going to happen. Don't leave them in the dark. Give them some expectation of what could happen. Let's just all be adults. A few things are going to happen here, okay? First, you're going to close, rehab, and sell it for a profit. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that you're going to assign it for a profit. That could potentially be your issue. Or you could potentially close on it, maybe do some repairs, maybe lease it out for a profit. But either way, you're buying it at a discount to make a profit. That's why we have to all be adults, right? Now, many people I've noticed over time will put down and/or assigns in your contract. Now, I'm certainly not an attorney and I don't play one on TV, right? But when you think about it, that's a big red flag to your agent who's on the other side or somebody else like that, that could potentially be one of the things you're thinking about. Now, I get you want to keep all your options open, and I'm cool with that, I understand, but there are cleaner ways to do surgery. You don't have to go through with a hacksaw. You can use a scalpel, right? Look, in my mind, that's not a smart way to solve the assignment problem. So you might be asking yourself, well, what is the assignment problem? Well, the assignment problem is, I can't speak for all states. And again, I'm not an attorney, but, maybe you've had that problem where, title or escrow or maybe the attorney or somebody like Realtors, somebody like that along the chain of the transaction gets their fur in a ruffle because of the assignment. Right? Many times you'll find this happen amongst people in the transaction where you're making more money on the assignment than they are in commission or fees or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times people will really get upset about that. So I write it into the contract itself, into the language itself, not into the buyer side, right? I write down the buyer does not intend to reside in the premises, but will lease, rent, assign, or repair and sell for profit. And then I just have them initial that. Put that in the additional comments of your contract. When you think about it, that leaves open all the possibilities. Now, the buyer, the seller, I should say, the seller, or maybe even their agent will say, well, gosh, what's this whole lease, rent, assign, what's this all about? When you tell them, well, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I know I'm not going to lease it out until I close. I might rent. I don't know. I might assign it out. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I just know that I'm going to make a profit on it, and I need to tell you that. Oh, okay. When they initial that, okay, that's going to solve a lot of the problems you're going to have at the very end. Trust me on this. I've had this personally, right? Where, you're making a, $5, $10, X $1,000 profit on a particular transaction, and the escrow company decides to get smart, and they decide to say, well, gosh, Does the seller know about this? And if you've not written in there anywhere that you're going to assign it or the potential of assignment or something, well, then many times they're going to go back to the seller and or their agent, let them know that you're making this particular assignment fee, and then there's going to be problems because they're going to say, well, gosh, the seller needs to sign off on it, and then you're going to have to go ahead and get attorneys involved, and it's going to be up to your state, and it's just not worth it. Look, write it in advance. Tell them, be honest. Tell them what's going to happen. Have them initial it, and that'll save you a lot of trouble. Trust me, that's a $500-600 problem right there that I solved for you. Tip number 7, hey, if these are any good for you, look, I know that you've been hanging in there for 15 minutes, and I appreciate the long video that you guys have been hanging out on. And if this is worth any of your time, of any of your video, any of your attention, then share it with a friend that you think might get some value out of it, or maybe in a Facebook group or Instagram post, somebody you think, and then of course tell me in the comments below what's been the best part so far for you. Tip number 7, get professional advice. Get professional advice, right? Now that you've done this properly, okay, you've not created any agency, you've got no commissions, okay, you've provided them comparables, you've told them what you think could happen or what you could do, right? As far as assignment, flipping it, leasing it, whatever. They've self-qualified themselves. This is what they want. They don't want to list it. They don't want to, they just want to sell it to you for cash, right? Well, then take it one step further, okay? Protect yourself. I've yet to meet a state that didn't hold agents to a higher standard than the public, right? I mean, the old poor Mr. Seller got taken advantage of by the big bad realtor person, right? When you think about it, advise them, point number 7, to get professional advice. Advise them to seek legal and financial advice because you're not able to provide it. I mean, one of the things that is so critical in this sort of environment, they can make some financial decisions that could have significant financial repercussions or tax repercussions or legal repercussions if they've got family or something. If they have any kind of question like that, you do not want to get involved in that. Make sure they understand that, hey, look, you need to contact somebody prior to this. Now's the time to prove it, right? I mean, if they really want to get this done, now's the time to do it. Just go ahead and initial and sign, get everything done. Now look, I recognize over the last 17 minutes or so, you've been listening to all this and probably thinking to yourself, holy cow, that's a lot of stuff. That's an awful lot of explanation and extra clauses and blah, 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 blah. And I get it, okay? Here's where it's going to pay off in the end. Okay, by being able to take your business to the next level, by being able to standardize your business, by being able to make it more professional, you're going to be able to expand your client base to realtors and their clients, which is going to automatically give you a lot more buyer opportunities, right? It's going to make your contracts a lot faster to sell, which is going to make you happier. It's going to make your customers a lot faster and happier because they're going to get their money, you're going to get your money, your end use buyer is going to get their property. Everybody's going to be a lot happier if you take these steps to be professional about it in the beginning and to be ethical about it. Now look, when I first started doing this, nobody was telling me any of this stuff, and I had to spend a lot of money to get an attorney to go ahead and teach me a lot of this stuff and give me some of these tips, and I'm willing to go ahead and share all those tips with you. Feel free to go ahead and hit the download button in the click below or in the link below, or perhaps in the podcast. Feel free to go ahead and check in the feed. You'll go ahead and get the link there to my Dropbox. You'll be able to go ahead and download a free Word document with all the stuff we just talked about, absolutely free. My gift to you for being a patient listener of the Red Pill Investor podcast and watching on the Sell More Homes Now on YouTube. Guys, I really appreciate all the kind letters, all the kind notes, the direct messages, the instant messages, emails, all the things you guys have been saying and doing for me. I just want to say thank you so much, and I will commit to go ahead and doing the best I can to give you the best content I can for investing realtors and sales skills that will help you make more money in less time. If you thought this podcast was helpful, feel free to do me a favor and share it with somebody. And as always, have a powerful sales day. Bye-bye.